The Central African Republic, known then as Ubangi Shari, became a French colony in 1920. This marked the beginning of a new era, one that would be defined by foreign control and exploitation. France controlled the region's resources, including diamonds and timber. These valuable commodities were extracted and exported to benefit the French economy, often at the expense of the local population. The French administration focused heavily on resource extraction, prioritizing economic gain over the well-being of the indigenous people. They paid little attention to developing infrastructure or social services for the local population. Roads were poorly maintained and villages lacked basic amenities. Life under French rule was difficult for many Central Africans. The harsh conditions and lack of opportunities made daily life a struggle. They faced forced labor, heavy taxation, and limited access to education and healthcare. The colonial system was designed to exploit rather than uplift. However, the colonial period also saw the introduction of new crops and farming techniques. These agricultural innovations were intended to increase productivity. These innovations brought about some economic changes, but primarily benefited French companies. The local population saw little of the wealth generated from their own land. As the 20th century progressed, calls for independence grew louder across Africa. Ubangi Shari was no exception. The desire for self-governance and freedom from colonial rule became a powerful force. Nationalist movements emerged, demanding an end to French rule and self-determination for the Central African people. Leaders and activists rallied the masses, inspiring hope and resistance. These movements gained momentum in the 1950s, setting the stage for a new chapter in the region's history. The struggle for independence was a defining moment, paving the way for future generations. August 13, 1960 marked a pivotal moment for the Central African Republic. After decades of French rule, the nation achieved independence. The newly formed republic faced numerous challenges. These included a lack of infrastructure, widespread poverty, and limited access to education and healthcare. The first president, David Dacko, sought to build a nation from scratch. His government focused on developing the economy, promoting education, and improving healthcare. However, Dacko's rule was short-lived. In 1965, Colonel Jean-Bédel Bokassa seized power in a military coup. This event marked the beginning of a long period of political instability and authoritarian rule that would characterize much of the Central African Republic's history. Bokassa's rule was marked by authoritarianism, human rights abuses, and economic mismanagement. He declared himself emperor in 1976 in a lavish coronation ceremony that drew international condemnation. His regime was characterized by corruption, brutality, and a cult of personality. Bokassa's extravagant lifestyle and repressive policies led to widespread discontent. In 1979, he was overthrown in a coup supported by France. Dacko returned to power, but was once again overthrown in 1981 by General André Kolimba. Kolimba's rule was marked by continued political repression and economic stagnation. However, by the late 1980s, the winds of change sweeping across Africa reached the Central African Republic. Pro-democracy movements emerged, demanding an end to one-party rule and the introduction of multi-party elections. Responding to internal pressure and external demands for democratic reforms, Kolimba agreed to hold multi-party elections in 1993. These elections, though marred by irregularities, marked the first time in the nation's history that power was transferred through a democratic process. Ange Félix Patas emerged victorious, becoming the first democratically elected president. Patas's presidency was a period of hope and progress. His government implemented economic reforms, promoted national reconciliation, and worked to improve relations with the international community. However, Patas's rule was also marked by challenges. Coups attempts, army mutinies, and rebellions plagued his presidency. Despite these setbacks, Patas's commitment to democracy and his efforts to address the country's deep-seated problems offered a glimmer of hope for the future. Section 5. Renewed turmoil, the rise of armed groups from 2003 to 2013. This period marked a significant escalation in violence and instability within the Central African Republic. In 2003, François Bozizé seized power in a coup, ousting Patas and plunging the Central African Republic into a new cycle of violence and instability. This coup d'état was a turning point that led to a decade of turmoil. Bozizé's rule was characterized by authoritarian tendencies, corruption, and a failure to address the root causes of the country's problems. His inability to provide effective governance exacerbated the already fragile state of the nation. The lack of governance and security in the Central African Republic led to the emergence of armed groups. These groups took advantage of the power vacuum, further destabilizing the region. These groups, often fueled by ethnic and religious tensions, terrorized the population, committed widespread human rights abuses, and further destabilized the country. The civilian population suffered immensely under their reign of terror. The situation deteriorated further in 2013, when the Seleka, a coalition of mostly Muslim rebel groups, overthrew Bozizé. This overthrow marked another significant shift in the country's turbulent history. The Seleka's brutal rule, marked by widespread atrocities against civilians, plunged the Central African Republic into chaos. Their actions led to further suffering and instability, leaving the nation in a state of disarray. Section 6. Seeking Stability, International Intervention and Fragile Peace, 2013 to 2020. The crisis in the Central African Republic drew international attention, leading to the deployment of peacekeeping forces from France and the United Nations. These interventions aim to halt the violence, protect civilians, and create conditions for a political solution. In 2016, after a period of transitional governance, Faustin Archange Touadéra was elected president in relatively peaceful elections. Touadéra's government faced the daunting task of rebuilding the shattered nation, restoring security, promoting reconciliation, and addressing the humanitarian crisis. Despite these efforts, the security situation remained fragile. Armed groups continued to control vast territories, challenging the government's authority and preying on civilians. The presence of international peacekeeping forces helped to contain the violence, but achieving lasting peace remained elusive. Section 7, A Decade of Uncertainty, Navigating Challenges, 2020 to 2025. The years 2020 to 2025 have been a period of uncertainty and continued challenges for the Central African Republic. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated existing problems, straining the country's weak healthcare system and further undermining the economy. Despite these challenges, there have been some positive developments. The government, with the support of international partners, has made some progress in implementing reforms, promoting disarmament, demobilization and reintegration of former combatants, and fostering dialogue among different communities. However, the security situation remains volatile. Armed groups continue to operate in parts of the country and intercommunal tensions persist. The humanitarian situation also remains dire, with millions in need of assistance. Section 8. Looking ahead, challenges and opportunities for the future. As the Central African Republic commemorates a century since becoming a French colony, the nation stands at a crossroads. The journey has been marked by both hope and despair, progress and setbacks. The country faces immense challenges, including widespread poverty, weak institutions, recurring violence, and a humanitarian crisis. However, amidst these challenges, there are also opportunities for a brighter future. The Central African Republic is endowed with vast natural resources, a young and dynamic population, and a growing desire for peace and stability. Realizing this potential will require a sustained commitment from the government, the support of the international community, and above all, the determination and resilience of the Central African people. Section 9. Conclusion. A century of resilience and the path forward. The Central African Republic's journey over the past century has been one of resilience in the face of adversity. The nation has faced numerous trials and tribulations, yet it has always managed to rise above them. From the colonial era to the present day, the Central African people have endured numerous challenges, including political instability, violence, poverty, and humanitarian crises. These challenges have tested the nation's strength and unity time and again. Yet, despite these hardships, They have shown remarkable resilience, determination, and a deep-seated aspiration for a better future. The spirit of the Central African people is unbreakable, and their hope for a brighter tomorrow remains steadfast. As the nation looks ahead, it is clear that the path forward will be challenging. The road to progress is fraught with obstacles, but the potential for growth and development is immense. Addressing the root causes of conflict, promoting sustainable development, strengthening governance, and ensuring justice and accountability will be crucial for achieving lasting peace and stability. These efforts will require the collective will and determination of the entire nation. The international community must continue to stand by the Central African Republic, providing support and assistance as the country navigates this complex and challenging path. Together, with solidarity and cooperation, a brighter future can be forged for the Central African Republic and its resilient people.